Yay.
All right, welcome back to the dungeon where we geek out on all things horror, thriller, mystery, and suspense. And today is Sunday, May 3rd. And we- I- we're getting really, I was getting a little, you know, desperate for some books. I haven't read a book in a while. So I thought to myself, you know what? I want to drop a dime on my buddy Joshua Millican. I know he always has a book, at least if not and then publishing. He's working on something at all times. So it's like, hey Josh, you want to come to the dungeon? And he said,
Love
yeah.
to. Hell yeah,
And
always.
here he is.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. And yeah, don't mind it. I've done some redecorating here, and if you see some guy down there in the basement named Joey, just give him a quick kick in the balls. He likes that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Absolutely.
Uh, uh, but he's my co-host for the podcast. Uh, so anyway, yeah, it's been a few blue moons. So what? Well, let's bring us up to date. What? Because I know you know what book we're to be talking about, but what? I don't even remember. It was see. This has been so long. This is you've been away too long, and I
I
I,
have
I
been.
can't even remember the last book that we it was
Teleportasm, I think.
teleportism. Yeah, it
Unless
was
we did one of the novelizations, but I think Teleportasm, or
yeah.
unless we did one of the novelizations, but Teleportasm was the last original book I wrote. I didn't have any releases in 2025, so
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that
big part of
explains
the
it.
reason why you and I haven't connected, but uh, I relocated recently from Southern California to Northern California. I'd lived in Northern California before, but never this far north. And
Okay.
my latest creative project, I kind of wanted to find a way to draw inspiration from my new environment. So, I just got in that state of mind. When you get up past Sacramento, it's a completely different landscape. Nature really starts to close in on you.
Hmm.
You have different primal fears getting triggered. So yeah, so I wanted to dive into a new novel, and like I said, I was trying to draw inspiration from my surroundings, and I've always been a Bigfoot fan, enthusiast, if you will, and I decided to write a Bigfoot book, fiction.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. This is not a documentary. This is not. Now in your the beginning of the book, I guess in the intro you call what is it called, the Patterson Gremlin tape,
Patterson Gimlin film, yes.
Gremlin film from 1967.
Mm-hmm.
And for any of you young curtain climbers out there, uh, if you haven't seen it, you got to look it up because it's like this is this is our generation's moon landing, I think.
I think it's been viewed even more than that. I read a
Really?
statistic that the only piece of film footage that's been viewed more times than Patterson Gimlin is the Kennedy assassination.
Oh,
So
okay.
it really is like a worldwide thing. But yeah, we're kind of dancing around it. But just to let everyone know, the title and the synopsis, my book is called Dopefoot, and it's about a college dropout who takes a job on a cannabis farm, a remote cannabis farm in Northern California, and things don't line up with his expectations. He thinks it's going to be a lot of fun, and the fun lasts for maybe a day and a half, and then it becomes something much different. But yeah, the Patterson Gimlin film, is part of the reason I'm such a Bigfoot fan. I think most people, I'm older than a lot of horror peeps these days, a little younger than yourself there. But I remember seeing the Patterson Gimlin film on a show called In Search of, which is kind
I,
of like a precursor to Unsolved Mysteries.
I
Leonard
remember
Nimoy was
that.
the host. Right, and there was a whole episode about Bigfoot. And when you're a kid, I thought that was news. I didn't realize that this was, from a very early age, I had seen the Patterson Gimlin film, and Spock from Star Trek told me it was real. So I just assumed that, yes, it was real. And I went through a big part of my life absolutely believing it was real, never even questioning it was real. I believed it so staunchly as a youth that the belief just held over into my adulthood, despite the fact that I should have been cluing into certain things about it. And then even when I started the book, I think I was kind of like 60-40, 60% not believing, but 40% still like, no, 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 it probably is. You just have to be realistic. And, unfortunately, I think I've come all the way around. I think that I am now officially a Bigfoot skeptic, but I always say I will be happy to be proven wrong. You get all these skeptics who are so mean about being skeptical. It's like I don't I mean, I wish it was true. The world is a much more exciting place with Bigfoot in it than it
Yeah.
is without. So I would happily be proven wrong. On the other hand, one of the themes of Dopefoot, which I'm sure you picked up on, is that Bigfoot is much bigger than a monster or a cryptid. Bigfoot is a phenomenon, and
Mm-hmm.
believing in Bigfoot is a very human thing to do, and it is directly proportional to how far away you are from society and how immersed you are into nature. And you might be someone who's a city guy or gal who's never been camping in their life, and you're just completely certain that Bigfoot doesn't exist because it's ridiculous. Now you come up here to Northern California and you spend a few days in the woods, you still might not believe in Bigfoot, but you'll be scared. You'll be
You're
scared
gonna
and
believe
you'll
something's
understand
out
it.
there.
Something is out there. The woods are scary, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's encoded into our DNA at a very primal level, I believe. So yeah, I don't think that Bigfoot's real. I do think that the phenomenon is huge and very satisfying. That being said, just that I don't believe Bigfoot real, like I said originally, prove me wrong and I'll be happy. I don't know everything. I haven't looked
Hmm.
at every piece of evidence and scrutinized it. I don't, maybe there is absolute proof over there, but it's been just diluted. It's hiding in the midst of all this fakery and rehashing old stuff. So maybe the proof is already out there. I don't know. I'm not trying to say anything definitive, but yeah, Bigfoot belief is something bigger than belief in the actual monster.
Oh yeah. Even on here in the on the East Coast, we got our Appalachians, and the
Hmm.
the forest and woods and lovely area that we have just running down the East Coast here, and
You talking about the Barrens?
yep, and
Yeah, yeah.
we got I think over on this side we got more cryptids like
Jersey Devil, you got
yeah,
the
uh,
something in Lake Champlain over there.
yep.
I don't know if you watch the news, keep up on this sort of thing in the news. Obviously, I'm very sensitive to cryptid information because, I've been immersed in this landscape for the past year, but there was a, a flap of Bigfoot sightings in Ohio, excuse me, just a few weeks ago. Like
In
five
Ohio.
sightings. Hmm.
Okay.
And they all came from people who were considered credible witnesses. And what was really interesting about that is they're saying, oh, this actually follows a weather pattern. You can see where the Sasquatch community was probably flushed out by bad weather, and they've been going along this. Anyway, it was really fascinating. So the
They're
other kind of
migrating.
they're migrating. That's what the point of this was. The other kind of big Bigfoot news of late is that a documentary film, premiered at South by Southwest that apparently proves that the Patterson Gimlin film is 100% a hoax, and they claim to have unearthed a video that proves that what we've seen the Patterson Gimlin film is actually the second take. That they did a first take that didn't look as good, so they threw it away and did a second take. I haven't seen
Hmm.
it. I don't know if it's true or not. People who have seen it are kind of in two camps, as you might expect. There are some people
Right.
who are like, wow, that's it. That's the nail in the coffin. This pillar of Bigfoot belief has been knocked down. And there are other people who say, no, it's complete bullshit. The proof of hoax is in itself a hoax because these filmmakers want to be the guys who disproved Bigfoot, and they probably used AI because now everything's going to be second guessed because of AI. But yeah, so it's an interesting time to be in the Bigfoot arena. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and I mean, talk back to all the weird things going on in the forest. I mean, I could being a city slicker. I haven't camped much, but when I did, just yeah, like you said, you'll believe in some. You'll be scared because you will hear shit out in the woods that you never heard before,
Hmm.
and it's like and especially at night, the forest, especially I don't know if it's like I didn't get very deep into the woods, but I'm
Hmm.
assuming that it's worse when you get deeper into the woods. And
Oh, I'm
the
sure.
stuff
Yeah.
gets louder and you hear more things. But you hear all kinds of stuff. I mean, the woods are alive, really,
Oh,
with
yeah.
all kinds of things.
It's a common sentiment, and there's a whole branch of eco horror that's really into personifying the forest. The forest is angry for being invaded. The forest is angry for being exploited. The force in itself is scary, but even when you don't go to those, imbibing them with deity powers or things like that, the force are just really scary. There's like nothing positive about being in the woods at night and hearing something because okay, you hear something in the darkness. Maybe it's Bigfoot, maybe it's not, maybe it's just a human. Well, that isn't any less terrifying that there's a human out there walking around your camp that you can't see. So it's almost like Bigfoot Gentle Giant would kind of be a relief compared to what maybe it's like a serial killer like Ranger Mason just, walking around,
Oh, God.
sizing me up. So yeah, there are all kinds of things. Nothing. It all just hits so much harder when you're there. And I've said for a long time, like it's the same with ghosts. I don't believe in ghosts, but I don't want to spend the night in a haunted insane or an abandoned insane asylum either.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
stay where my electricity is, where I can get in my car, where I see other human people around me. Everything changes depending on your perspective.
yeah,
Your physical, literal physical perspective changes everything.
yep, absolutely. So, yeah, so there's now to the book. I mean, when I first heard the title Dopefoot, the first thing that came to my mind was Cocaine Bear.
I mean, it is kind of other people have said that too. I like that they make that analogy because Dopefoot it is the synopsis in a lot of ways. It's Bigfoot and it's cannabis. So there you go. The title is the elevator pitch.
Okay.
And I like the fact that it's so evocative. It just puts it right in your brain. And
Yeah.
even though I do include the definition of Dopefoot towards the end, I actually made it up. It's not actually a real term. You can't come up here to Northern California and start talking about Dopefoot and people will understand exactly what you mean. I made that up, but I came up with the title before I even knew what the word meant or who or what was Dopefoot.
Hmm. So you the whole premise of the book, the title came first, and then you just kind of
Kind of. You know, I,
expounded on that from there.
Exactly, exactly. I wanted to write a Dopefoot, or excuse me, a Bigfoot horror book. Like I said, when I came to Northern California, I was like, this is it. It's time for me to jump into the Bigfoot sandbox. And there was going to be a Bigfoot book coming out. It got canceled. I'm not going to say who the author was or who the publisher was. You can look it up for yourself. But it was going to be kind of like a found footage Bigfoot horror novel, and the title was Big Fuck, and I loved it. I thought Big Fuck was like the best name of a Bigfoot book ever. And I was kind of lamenting the fact that like I couldn't title my book Big Fuck because the best name ever had been taken. And my wife and I were kind of just talking about it one day and she's like, "You should call it Dopefoot." And boom, it was right there. It was Bigfoot. It was the cannabis farm. It was Northern California. It was the woods. It was all of it right there. And yeah, it's like the title made me 100% certain that there was a full novel in here that, it was worth investing in. And I just went from there. And one of the things I love about it, not to toot my own horn, which I do from time to time,
Hmm.
I really made an effort to avoid all of these standard Bigfoot tropes. No
Right,
camping, no hunting,
right.
no car broke down on the side of the road, no
No,
cabin in the
no
woods.
Bigfoot hunters or something.
Exactly, exactly. So, I wanted it to be exciting. Um, fresh to like absolutely be a Bigfoot book, but to be fresh. And to that end, I decided early on when I was writing it too, I wanted this book to be very satisfying for people who believe in Bigfoot. I wanted them to feel validated, but I didn't want people who don't believe in Bigfoot to be asked to, I wasn't going to ask them to suspend their disbelief. So,
Hmm.
and I still wanted to give them a great experience too. And you've read it, you know how it ends. I hope I did this like balancing act well, where it was like, it's not real, but it is real, but it's not real, but it is real, but it's not real, but it is real,
Right,
So
right.
kind of at a certain point, it becomes circular thinking, but it also just becomes about, the bigger picture in general. I wanted anyone who has any feelings whatsoever about Bigfoot or no feelings to pick it up and read about it and to check it out. Because, Bigfoot, I've said this before now a couple times, it's like this it's almost an honor for me to write Bigfoot because Bigfoot is like this universal popular IP that you don't have to pay into, that anyone could just, grab and run with. So, there's a built-in audience, but to that end, I wanted to give them something original or at the very least innovative. I wanted to give them something they hadn't seen before. And I think,
Oh yeah.
another thing I do in Dopefoot is I set you up to expect certain things and
You,
then I kind of yank that out from under you at least twice and once
yeah.
in a major way.
I was gonna say you did a good double punch on this book. It was like so, uh, and I like the ending too because it's one of the things I really admired about it. That is like it calls back to the very beginning,
Hmm.
and it's just a good. I don't know. I don't know. I'm maybe like borderline OCD. I have no idea, but I like things when everything's all kind of like wrapped up
Hmm.
and things can like come back to the beginning. So you started with one particular thought or perspective, and then what is the Ranger Mason?
Rich Mason, yeah.
He's he's an interesting character, but I liked how you ended with him, and he's reiterating the same kind of thought or same idea that was first first brought forth in the first chapter.
Yeah, the Rustin Parks chapter. Yeah, you're right. You're right. The ending, I'm glad it's been resonating with people because that ending, for writers, I think there's a lot of pressure to come up with this great ending and a punchy prologue. But one of my favorite recent horror movies was In a Violent Nature, which is the new take on the slasher horror trope. The Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, but the entire time was from the point of view of the slasher. So you're
Right.
always on his shoulder as opposed to any of the other characters being scared. It's really interesting, but the only time that broke was at the end. The movie has kind of like a 4 or 5 minute ending monologue, and it's just two women in a pickup truck riding
Yeah.
down a road. And at some point, there's a feeling of safety in the sense that, they're together and the final girl has been saved, but the conversation just becomes more and more unnerving, more and more open to interpretation. And at the very end, you're unnerved again. And I just really loved it. The ending of the movie was really controversial. Well, the movie itself was controversial. People
Yeah.
loved it or hated it, and then people loved or hated the ending. But I thought the ending really stuck with me. I mean, obviously, it really stuck with me. I mean, you can name 50 horror movies, and I'll probably only really remember the ending of a handful of them. But I've never forgot that ending, and I just kind of wanted to have like the same sort of understated ending, that would still kind of just like leave that feeling of dread and uncertainty in the pit of your stomach.
Yeah, because when I got to the end of the book, it was like, holy hell, I could go back to the beginning, reread this book, and just insert different people
Mm,
into the experiences and stuff like that. Because it seems like this kind of stuff it's happened before.
mm,
It's most likely going to happen again.
yeah.
So,
That's one of the themes I get to in the end too, is like, I talked a little before about, deified forests, angry forests. My forest is more of a Lovecraftian forest. It doesn't give a fuck. There's the character Old Man who has like his own homegrown spirituality where he believes in an overarching deity that is all-knowing but cruelly indifferent. And that word is important, cruelly indifferent. And
mm,
that's nature. That's the forest in my book. The forest is all knowing. It knows what's going on. It knows that people are fucking with it and that it's being exploited and harvested and torn down and desecrated. Forest still just doesn't even care. It's going to be around so much longer than we are that it just doesn't care. And there's something about knowing that humanity exists and just being so unimpressed that you just like go along with your day anyway, that's like worse than a targeted hatred or evil, you know?
mm-hmm. It's like yeah, it's like you're saying. It's like the Force knows it's going to be around. It was around long before we showed up. I'm sure it's going to be long after
Mm,
we're gone. It's
mm,
like yeah, okay, you enjoy your little time here.
hmm.
I'll just stand back, and when you're out of the way, uh, we'll get back to we'll get back to what I was doing before you interrupted me.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So you read it. What questions did you have for me? What parts did you like? What parts did you wrestle with?
talking about pulling a rug out from under
Mm,
the second one, and
mm.
usually, well, first my first thought was, hmm, he's and we're being vague on purpose because like
Well, people
it
can
doesn't tell.
pause it and say like, "Okay, I'm going to come back
Yeah.
later." Come back in a couple minutes. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Uh,
Little spoilers have already been seeping out on Goodreads and stuff like that. So,
okay. Yeah, I find usually if I tell people to come back, they won't come back. They'll forget.
right, right.
but
But
I,
I think it's fine. Let's talk about whatever you want.
but it's like I was surprised that it's like okay he's pulling his shit this early in the book. I would have waited longer. So, and then it was like, okay, well, maybe this is like that one thing I thought about it was like movies like Barbarian, where it's almost like
Hmm.
two movies
Hmm.
like kind of smashed together.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, well maybe he's gonna maybe the tone's gonna be different from here on out. Maybe it's gonna be a different. Maybe we're gonna do I thought with how many characters you have in here, I was thought maybe our main character was going to get killed off or something like that, or Bigfoot was going to, Dopefoot was going to get him or whatever, and we're going to switch over to one of because it could very easily have gone, you know, switched over to one of the other characters and and did them as the main character from
Sure.
that point on, because there's a lot of really interesting characters in here,
Yeah.
and then so yeah, it was just the I think just the flow of it was the one thing that kept I kept being impressed with is like again with the you got that 1-2 punch you pull the rug out from people and then a little bit later it's like since you've already done it once it's like okay well now you're on to like this is like the real book from here on out right
Hmm. Hmm.
and then you pull the again and it's like how many fucking books are in this
Right,
you
right. It's
know
definitely like three acts for sure, for sure. And yeah, it's I set you up for these expectations, and it's not that I don't deliver those expectations. I'm not fooling anybody. I just give you something different. The first expectation I set up is that this is going to take place on this farm, that this farm is the stage upon which, and I think we're both talking about the same stuff. The first rug pull is that no, you're going into the woods. You've been
Right.
told
Yeah.
for a third of the book that you should never under any circumstances go into the woods, and
Don't
then
split the party.
you're right.
So,
So, that's the first thing I do is like, you have this great group of characters, you have this clear mission, protect the farm, and then okay, we're not going to do that. And then the real gut punch, I have a friend, author Bitter Corella. She read the book and she said she was actually mad for a second at that point when I put Harmless in the hole because it was like, at that point I've set you up to believe that this is like a band of brothers type adventure. This ragtag motley crew of underdogs is going to come together and fight their way through just one crazy dramatic scene after another. And then it's like, no, you're not getting that either. So it's kind of like telling you twice that you're not going to have the fun experience you thought, but giving you a different kind of fun experience. The last act is a fun house. It's been described. Some of the reviews talk about roller coaster and House of Horrors. That really kind of is what the last third of the book is. It's like every single chapter is a different room in a house of horrors, until you get to the big reveal, the money shot. What is this thing in the woods?
the one and this is not like a sexual book, but the this is just how my mind works. The, as I'm reading this stuff, uh, as I'm getting later in the book, I'm thinking to myself, is he edging me? What the fuck? Because it's like there's a little bit. It's like nope. Nope, nope. Yeah, yeah. It's like okay, you want this to happen, which is why I'm not going to do it.
Right,
So
right, right.
I'd say
I mean, in a little way, I mean, those are the things that are most impactful, though. I mean, all the stories that follow the same outline uh, kind of bleed into each other at a certain point. This wasn't going to be, a modern day Lord of the Rings or Goonies or Stranger Things. This was always going to be something different. You just didn't know it when you started reading it. I didn't force you to have those expectations. It's just that's the fun thing about coming into an established subgenre. There are so many rules in place. By the time I get in there, you're already likely to be thinking upon a certain path. It just makes it so easy, when I know that you have certain expectations to then, pull the rug out from under. And it seems like there's really only one of two ways you can end a Bigfoot horror story, right? Either Bigfoot's real or it's been a hoax. That those are the two outcomes. And I just tried so hard to come up with like a third option or even a third and a fourth option, and just had so much fun doing it.
that's great, and yeah, and it's very predict. I mean, human nature is very predictable because I mean,
Mm,
you think of all the I mean, just talking about horror movies. All right, we know that when we go into an Evil Dead movie, there's going to be a chainsaw. There's got to be a chainsaw, otherwise it's not an Evil Dead movie. That type of thing. So we build up our expectations based on what we've either from previous IP stuff or just tropes that have been
hmm
run the gamut. And
hmm
it was like, okay, we this is what, and that's where a lot of the hype comes from. I think too. It's like and and even talking with about horror movies, we come up with expectations. We build up all of our expectations, and I think that's where a lot of people get disappointed or think, well, that wasn't so good, or whatever, because we've drawn up, we've already decided before we bought the ticket what this movie's going to be about.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Yeah, it's like okay, so it's like what we expect. Like if you go see an Evil Dead movie, somewhere in the movie there's got to be a chainsaw. I mean,
hmm
it's a given, that type of thing, or at least at the very least see Sam Raimi's old car if he even still
hmm
owns that car. I don't
I,
know.
I still see it popping up. I'm pretty sure it's still out there.
But and with the Bigfoot, okay, it's like And this is where I think you really did yourself a service with the name, just the name alone. Because all right, yeah, it's a Bigfoot book, so people could, whether they believe or not, or they're familiar with the film or of all the conspiracies and stuff like that, they have this preconceived notions like, okay, this is what this book, but then they see the title Dopefoot, and it's like, well, that's something different.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like, and then just the title alone would, I think, it intrigued me when I reached out to you. It was like, hey, uh, what you doing? You want to come back on? And it's like, because the title alone is like, okay, it's because I started thinking it was like I said earlier, cocaine bear. It's like, okay,
Right.
is this
Yeah,
Bigfoot
big
that
eating
gets
weed and
high
getting
and stuff
high.
like that, and what is that,
No, totally, totally. And I love the fact that we're talking so much. Sorry. I love that we're I thought I had the I thought I had my copy of it in front of me. I don't, unfortunately. But what I was going to say is like, I love the fact that, it is a Bigfoot book. We talk so much about Bigfoot when I go on podcasts to talk about it. So much of the marketing I've been doing on Instagram and stuff is centered around Bigfoot. But if you look at the title, or excuse me, if you look at the cover, which is an amazing cover from Joey Powell, who's also the founder and the guy who runs Mad Axe Media. I told him going in, I'm like, there can be nothing stereotypically Bigfoot on the cover. No footprints, no hulking mass in the trees, no yellow eyes peering out from the darkness. There can't be anything on the cover that promises Bigfoot in the slightest. And so yeah, I set people up for certain things. You're in this Bigfoot book, but if you look at the cover, I never promised you that it was going to be a traditional Bigfoot book, did I? Except for the name Foot. There's nothing on the cover that promises you a cryptid, but I do give you a cryptid in a sense because blah blah blah.
right? And I don't know if the art that I got, I don't know if some of the artwork's going to be in the final book,
Yeah, yeah, there
but
are going to be some of those images.
I'm looking at one. It's almost like a third eye type of thing
Hmm.
going on with the hands, and then you see them looks like a military helicopter and stuff like
That was
that.
that was kind of one of our first ideas for potential covers. That was kind of like a collaborative brainstorm between myself and Joey Powell, where we just threw everything against the wall. I said, overall, I wanted something that looked like kind of like a psychedelic 60s 70s era concert poster. Again, I didn't want any of the traditional Bigfoot stuff, but then we were like throwing in everything. It's like, okay, staircase in the woods, okay, handprints, okay, helicopter, okay, eventually. So yeah, that's where that thing came up from. It's kind of like the entire novel distilled into a single collage image, but yeah, we threw a lot of things around. And in the book, hopefully in the version I sent you to, there are other illustrations. Joey did a couple illustrations of Honeydew. There's a really cool illustration of the farm. There's even that most mysterious character of strange origin is illustrated at a certain point in there. It's pretty shocking, and yeah, I just love everything that Joey did for the book. I'm grateful that he picked me up to publish. Nico Bell is the editor over there, and she contributed so integrally to Dopefoot's development and final presentation.
Yeah, and where now I gotta ask you. This is just my own
Hmm.
personal curiosity. Where did the names of all the characters come from? It's like, are they nicknames, or are they it's like, are they real names, or is it a nickname that they were been given based on
Yeah,
something that happened to them, or
right, right. It's different for each one. The names are important. First of all, no one uses their real names. That's very important because when you're in a black market industry, it's just better off that you don't know who you're dealing with, because then you couldn't be forced to, give up squeal to the feds even if they wanted you to. Plausible deniability.
Mm,
So no one uses their
yes.
real names, and the way it's explained to the main character is you can choose a name or you're going to get stuck with the name is basically what happens. So you meet characters along the way who have clearly chosen their names. Um, the Mother Agatha and Big Papa. Those are paternal names. They chose them themselves, and other characters do have these names that they either chose or became associated with or were given. Yeah, and the names reveal and disguise things about certain characters as well. The main character gets stuck with the name Harmless. It's because he can't think of anything cool in time, and he's getting introduced to people, and they say, "Oh, well, he seems harmless, so let's just call him Harmless." And he's like, "Oh, bummer, I'm stuck with this weak mountain name." But there's old man who isn't an old man. So there's a very young man whose mountain name is Old Man. There's Loco, who isn't crazy or Hispanic. It's actually an obscene pun. So yeah, you have all these characters. You have other characters who are named after the cities they're from. You got a Chico, you got a Fresno. Um, yeah, yeah. Chosen names. You got Jester. It's just kind of that thing about how that no one knows who you really are. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much about what you said about the characters, because that's one thing I feel like I knew coming in, because everyone wants certain things from a Bigfoot book. They're going to want this big cryptid scare, this big reveal, and that's just there's a lot writing on it when it's just that. So I wanted to make the characters as interesting as whatever it is that's stalking them in the woods. And if I did it well, with all these other instances, with all these other situations happening around. And it's like for a lot of the book, Bigfoot's kind of like a secondary concern. Everyone has
Mm,
much more pressing issues to deal with, and it really only matters when there's this sort of like collision. Um, but yeah, I wanted the characters to be as interesting as the creature. I wanted them all to feel real and fleshed out. And I had a beta reader very early on who told me to do more honeydew. He said that honeydew is like this iceberg, and that's why I kind of extended on her story.
yeah.
She was more ambiguous in my first draft. All you really knew is that she came from the woods and that she had a deep fear of being caught outside the farm after sunset. And I really like drew out more. I always had her disappearing and then popping back up, but I did write an entire chapter. There is an entire chapter from Honeydew's perspective. It's the only time I switched perspective from the main character, Harmless, except for the prologue and the epilogue, but whatever. It's yeah, Honeydew really kind of like is the soft heart of Dopefoot, and I do this thing where I end up creating these characters and then I feel really terrible for what I put them through. But at least she lives. Spoiler, she lives,
Yeah.
so she is still the heart of the forest, I guess.
Yeah. And just I mean just for me personally as a reader, unless a character has a really is really quirky or has something really unique or unusual character or way of talking when you write the dialogue, stuff like that. Um, if these are like normal names, Joe, Bob,
Hmm.
William, Bob, um, I have to take notes on okay, what who's this character's name? Because otherwise,
Hmm.
if you're just saying okay, Bob said this, it's like who the fuck's Bob? Which one is Bob? Okay, but when you so one of the things that I liked about your characters' names and what really helped me as a reader is like, okay, um, uh, we said that a ranger, Ranger
Hmm.
Mason said this.
Ranger
Right,
Mason.
right. Okay, and as long as I know that he's in this scene, I don't necessarily need to see his name. And Ranger said this, said Roger Mason, no, whatever.
Hmm.
It's like okay, just by the way, I could hear I don't know, different voices. I feel voices in my head. I hear different when I read the dialogue. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, that's something that Ranger Mason would say, or
Right,
that type
right.
of thing. So just to have the uniqueness of just the names, and it gets you it gets people intrigued on okay, like it did me. It's like why do they have that name? Why are they going by that name? It's like there's
Hmm.
something about this person's backstory that uh, that name fits.
Yeah, Ranger Mason is kind of like my coup d'etat in terms of like the cleverness of the names, and something being true and false simultaneously, because he is a ranger, but he's not a ranger, and
Hmm.
anyway, like he's one of my favorite little pop-up characters. I knew I wanted to have a few characters like that. I was kind of inspired by, David Lynch and Twin Peaks, how every few episodes he would just have someone come along for one scene or one episode, and then you'd never see or hear of that person again, or you will, but like a few episodes later. But yeah, I like I became very fond of, Harmless, of course. He's like the me character of the story. I really grew attached to Honeydew, and I really like Ranger Mace. Oh, and Old Man. Old Man
Oh
was like
man,
so cool. Like, coming up with his dialogue was so fun.
I bet.
You got V Castro there saying it's the best Bigfoot lore book she's ever read. You got Clay McLeod Chapman over there talking about how I'm serving up some dank frights. So, yeah, the wonderful art from Joey Powell, creating this really psychedelic fever dream feel to it that instantly puts you a little off kilter and
Hmm.
throws you into the whole metaphorically and physically. And yeah, I'm just really stoked with how it turned out.
That's cool. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, as you know, I like to give the audience just like a brief snippet, little teaser of uh, what it could be a favorite scene, it could
Mhm.
be a cliffhanger, whatever you want. But to give the audience just an idea, like I said, a little teaser of the writing style and the tone of the book. So, Josh, what
Ooh.
passage have you?
I guess I will read the Ranger Mason because we've been talking so much about him. And the cool thing about Ranger Mason is he's late in the book, but I can give you this chapter in a way that's not really going to ruin everything. Basically, all you have to know is the main character, Harmless, has now been separated. There's a countdown to Armageddon. He's being stalked by something in the woods. He just dragged himself out of a freezing river.
Hmm.
And he thinks he's probably going to die of hypothermia. So he crawls out of this river. He's kind of like huddled under the trunk of a fallen tree or something, and he's just thinking he's going to die. And then all of a sudden, someone approaches. The approaching figure is wearing a waterproof poncho and a distinctive wide brimmed hat. The hat is covered in what looks like a large plastic shower cap. He stops suddenly in his tracks, goes silent, as though sensing something watching him. Hello? The man shines his light around the woods. Anybody out there? The voice is chipper, devoid of menace or intimidation, genuine and kind. He's not a boiler or a Lithuanian. He's not one of the tree people. Harmless feels immense relief. Hello? He raises an arm and waves slowly. Goodness gracious, the man replies, shining a light on Harmless. What the heck are you doing out on a night like this, sport? Geez, you're in a state. Did you get lost? He pulls something from his satchel as he approaches. Cover yourself with this. He unfolds a foil sheer and wraps it around Harmless. Thank you, Harmless replies. The man stands at attention and gives Harmless a salute. Ranger Mason at your service. He's a man in his 40s, slender and clean cut. His smile is goofy and toothy. I know it doesn't look like much, but that emergency blanket will warm you up in a jiff. A ranger. Harmless can hardly believe his good fortune. He'll get me situated and pointed in the right direction for sure, he thinks. Thank God. Lightning flashes overhead, followed by a terrible roar of thunder. Well, what the heck are you doing out here, sport? Ranger Mason asks. You camping? Harmless's reasons for being in the Green Cauldron are difficult to explain succinctly, especially to an authority figure. He doesn't want to incriminate himself or say anything to make Ranger Mason suspicious. He chooses to ignore the question for now. Where am I? Harmless asks. Where are you? Ranger Mason replies, astonished. Well, sir, you're in Humboldt, Trinity, or Mendocino, depending on which way you throw a rock. Are you out here all alone? Yes, Harmless replies. I got lost. I was stuck in a cave and caught in a river. Thank God you found me. Thank the good Lord indeed, Ranger Mason replies enthusiastically. God is great. Listen, Harmless says, already feeling significantly thawed. We should get out of here. It's not safe. I think I'm being followed. Ranger Mason puts his hands on his hips. Well, sport, you know what they say. If you feel like you're being watched in the woods, you definitely are, he chuckles. Everything's alive out here. I'm being chased, Harmless insists. Did you know, Ranger Mason says, that if you come across a bell in the woods, you should never ever ring it? Harmless is confused. Okay. I mean it, sport, Ranger Mason stresses. You never know what you might summon. What does this have to do with anything? Harmless wonders. Ranger Mason continues. And if you ever come to a door in a frame out here in the middle of the woods, a door to nowhere, don't ever walk through it. The same thing goes for staircases in the woods. Don't go anywhere near them. You're liable to get sucked into an alternate dimension. Thanks, Harmless says. I won't, but Ranger Mason interrupts. Did you know that some people think the National Park Service was created in order to corral feral people? Ranger Mason asks. That's kind of hooey, though. Harmless's confusion multiplies. Wait, are you talking about those? Ranger Mason raises a finger to his lips. Shh. His smile seems unnaturally wide. Did you know there's a whole religion that worships Mount Shasta? They believe there's an entire civilization beneath it, a sister city of Atlantis. They're called Luminarians. Do you believe that? That's wild, Harmless says while getting to his feet. His shivers have subsided. I'm feeling better now. Can we go back to your cabin or station? We're close, Ranger Mason assures him. But do you know the one thing the National Park Service simply will not tolerate? What's wrong with this guy? Harmless wonders. He shrugs. No. Ranger Mason looks around with his flashlight to make sure there isn't anyone spying on their private conversation. He cups a hand around his mouth like he's telling a secret and whispers, Bigfoot. Harmless chuckles nervously. Bigfoot isn't real, he replies in a matter of fact tone. That's right, Ranger Mason replies enthusiastically. Bigfoot isn't real, he calls out loudly, making sure all listening ears can hear him. He turns back to Harmless and winks. That's what we tell people thousands of times a year. Bigfoot isn't real. Don't even bother making a report, and certainly don't call the police. Bigfoot isn't real, Harmless repeats. Now, I could tell you a lot of trouble. I could tell you. Oh, man. Now, I could get into a lot of trouble for telling you this, Ranger Mason says. I need you to swear you're not going to tell on me, sport. Do you swear to God? Harmless nods. If you're ever hiking through the woods, Ranger Mason lowers his voice into a hush, and you hear something following you, don't look back. Lightning breaks across the sky beneath Ranger Mason in a menacing glow. Thunder echoes throughout the valleys as the wind picks up again. Oh my God, Harmless has an epiphany. Is everyone in this valley fucking crazy? Now, Ranger Mason says, returning to his bright tone, let me take you to my cabin or station. How long have you worked for the Park Service? Harmless asks. Ranger Mason looks confused. I don't work for the National Park Service, sport, he replies. I don't believe I ever said that. But, Harmless stammers, you're a ranger. Ranger Mason laughs. I didn't say that either, son. He laughs until he snorts. I'm not a ranger. Ranger's my name. What? Harmless teeters on the verge of hysterics. My brother's names are Ryder Rover and Racer Mason, Ranger Mason says. Harmless feels crushing disappointment. He wants an ally, someone to help him escape his pursuers and point him towards Goat Farm before the rockets fly. Instead, he finds a certified lunatic. So, you're just some guy who lives out here? Harmless asks incredulously. Here, there, and everywhere, Ranger Mason replies. Come on now, let me take you to my cabin or station. Why are you wearing a Park Service hat? Harmless asks, annoyed and exasperated. Ranger Mason shrugs. The guy I took it from didn't need it anymore. He smiles as another bolt of lightning cracks the sky. Come on, sport, let's go to my cabin or station. Why do you keep saying that? Harmless asks. Cabin or station? Ranger Mason chuckles. That's what you called it, sport. It's really more of a. He searches for the right words. Shack. No, no, wait. Hovel. No, no. Shack. The man's dangerous, Harmless realizes. Ranger Mason puts his hands on his hips. His tone switches from chipper to neutral to almost robotic. Do you know what a skinwalker is? Or a shapeshifter? His tone turns from neutral to suspicious. Yes, I believe you do. I need to go. Harmless is keen to distance himself from this forest freak. What? Ranger Mason looks baffled and confused. You're in no shape to. I'll be fine, Harmless insists, taking a few tentative steps backwards. I think I remember how to get back. He touches the Luger stashed in his waistband just to make sure it's still there. Ranger Mason clicks his tongue a few times. Uh-huh, he says. Well, I certainly can't force you to come back to my cabin or station, can I? Thanks for the blanket. Harmlessly removes the emergency blanket from around his shoulders, balls it up, and attempts to hand it back to Ranger Mason. Ranger Mason doesn't reach out to accept it. He just stands there, staring at Harmless, smiling. A gust of wind pulls the foil from Harmless's hands. It tumbles through the trees like a chrome ghost. Remember what I told you, Ranger Mason winks. Don't go climbing any staircases in the woods. And if you think Bigfoot's following you, don't turn around. I will, Harmless replies. I mean, I won't. I'm sure you will. Goodbye now. With those words, Ranger Mason continues on through the forest, presumably towards his cabin or station. He whispers the theme to the love boat as he melts into the trees. So that's yeah, that's Ranger Mason. He pops
Yeah.
up one more time before the story's over.
Excellent. I just love those characters.
Thank you.
Uh, wow. Joshua, thank you so much for coming back to the dungeon. Uh,
Always happy to.
so yeah, you're always welcome. There's a door always open for you. So again, Dopefoot, June 16th,
Yes.
2026.
Yes. You can already
So
get it on Mad Axe Media's website. You can also pre-order it from the Zon or whatever, but ordering it straight from the publisher puts fewer people in between me and my royalties. So, check out Mad Axe Media, pre-order Dopefoot. It might even come with some cool little extras.
okay, definitely check that out. Joshua, thank you so much again. And so until I guess until your next book, do you have anything brewing in your head?
Well,
Maybe.
actually, I got a new novelization contract that I'm working on. It's a kind of not obscure, but a lesser known French film from the early 2000s that came out in the wave of new French extremity. So I'm excited to work on that. And I have a couple manuscripts in various states of completion. I have a feeling, sort of a sense, especially if Dopefoot does well, that I'll be agented before too much longer. And I'll be happy to have an agent who can work on getting me placed and, getting me edits and, putting my work in front of the right people because I think I've got a lot of good stuff and I want to start bringing it to as many people as possible.
Definitely. I mean, you see, just as many times that you've been on the show. I mean, you're a pretty prolific writer, so you're
Thank
coming up
you.
with all kinds of stuff. And when you're not working on an original idea, you're giving voice to some classic movie that's
Hmm.
coming out or been out, and even your Dread Central
Hmm.
callback book. I forget the name of
Hmm.
that one, but
The Dreadful Years.
yes, the Dreadful Years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very
Well,
very
thank you as well for always being a supporter. You've been down with Joshua Millican from day one, and I appreciate that. So I'll always come back anytime you invite me, and I'll be happy to share whatever I've got next with you.
excellent. We appreciate that very much. Well, thank you so much, and we will see you and everybody else at the dungeon next time.
Cheers.